Hello. This is side one for January's essay on proponents of banning cell phones in schools. So this was probably one of my students' favorite topics. We had a lot of discussions. So if you didn't come in person, wow, you missed some fun because we had a really good time, really talking about what's going on in the classroom. So just to preface, before I show you a real quick video, this kind of came to light recently. There's been a lot of news about issues in schools. So first of all, we have two problems from the last 2 years. We have learning losses. And I know a lot of my students who are top students are saying, well, I feel like I've caught up on academic losses. I doubt it. There was just too long a stretch there. But you probably are closer than a lot of other students because you were already probably above grade level when the pandemic hit, which means you had a little wiggle room. I want you to consider, though, those students who were at grade level or below grade level and what 6 months of no learning would do to them. That's almost impossible to recover from. And then I want you to factor in that school is not just about academics. A lot of school is about socialization and developing really important social skills. And I think you can all agree with me that that has not caught up yet. When students were home, two things happened. Mom and dad, I think, this was, traumatic, what we faced in the last 2 years. And we were in new territory, all of us, including teachers, myself included. So I think we, all adults and children, developed a cell phone dependency. There's something about that little pocket device, not your iPad, not your computer, which I'm pretty sure we all know that any kind of screen, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, the more screen time, the less healthier it is on our brain, because we are more sedentary. So physically, it's not good for us. And mentally, it's not good for us because it affects our sleep. It affects our focus, our attention. Okay, so let's factor that in. Also factor in that we went to Zoom classes. We went to online. Everything became digital. So for a lot of kids, and not usually my kids who come from the affluent Coppell area, who didn't have access to internet, didn't have a school issued iPad, that cell phone became the lifeline to learning. And, probably the lifeline to entertainment too, if we can all, agree with that. So you have a device that you can bring to school. Yes, it can help you with an education. But the downsides to what it does to kids far supersedes any school-related function that device can give you, especially if you're in Coppell, Flower Mound, Southlake, or Carrollton Farmers Branch, who issues you, iPads and computers. And I think that's the very reason kids are so glued to their phones. We don't want the firewalls. We don't want the exclusions, our school districts policing us. We want to be able to have access to unlimited content, unlimited information at, our fingertips, and it's our phone. So we feel like we have ownership of it. Okay, so we've got two problems. We have learning losses, and not just academics. We have social skills learning losses, which you're probably seeing because we have a rise in behavioral and discipline problems, unlike anything before. So schools are taking some pretty drastic measures. I know Coppell had attempted it in 2022, and I think they just didn't go far enough. I think not all teachers were on the same page. I think it wasn't enforced like it should have been, but I think you should be aware wherever you are, it might be coming. 77% of schools nationwide have banned cell phones in schools. That's a pretty huge chunk. And get this, those who have done it have seen a rise in academic performance, an increase in standardized test scores, which that's how your school gets funding. So that's pretty motivating. And then get this, they've seen a decrease in behavioral problems. They've seen a decrease in disciplinary issues. And it's got one common denominator, the cell phone. So let me share this screen. I'm going to do a short video here. Here we go.
Teenagers have access to a smartphone, but studies show that too much screen time can have harmful mental health effects. In tonight's Family Matters, CBS's Meg Oliver shows us how some schools are trying to help.
This year, sophomore Saber Kuvea has the gift of time.
It's like, even though, sure, I would enjoy scrolling through TikTok on my phone, I have more time to dedicate to like art specifically.
In September, Buxton School in rural Massachusetts, which Gouveia attends, bans smartphones for students and teachers. The school's few dozen students still have access to tablets and laptops during class, but the school's director, Franny Shuker-Haynes, wanted to give them a break from the constant demands of technology.
Do you feel like you're taking that pressure off of them? Absolutely. And allowing them to control when and where they decide to engage with these apps.
Studies have shown overuse of technology can lead to less sleep, disengagement from friends and family, emotional stunting, and can cause depression and anxiety, a concern for psychologists like Catherine Steiner-Adair.
Why are we giving kids stimulants during the day that disrupt all the good aspects of learning, particularly at a time where they have to develop their abstract thinking?
Buxton is part of a growing number of institutions banning smartphones, but it's not just at small schools.
I think every district can do it.
Since 2019, Forest Hill School District in Michigan has banned phones for its 9,000 students, even at lunch. Rick Kevel is a high school social studies teacher.
When no one has to worry about missing out what's going on their cell phone because everyone's off of it, I think all schools need to have a guideline in place.
I think that's fascinating, everybody. I think it's fascinating to see engagement, conversations, face-to-face interactions. I love that shot of the cafeteria. So many of my students, tell me people are glued to their devices, even their iPads. They'll bring their iPads in the cafeteria. Okay, so that video I just played came from this first article that is in your group of articles. So again, that statistic, 77% of public schools prohibit cell phones. And that is currently, so this was written December 21st, 2022. Now, to be clear, private schools were ahead of the game, and they usually are. Private schools and charter schools have pretty much tried to enforce it and done a pretty good job. I'm really sad about how Coppell has handled it. And I think a lot of it is because of the affluent children and parents. So when you do the proponent side, you always have to address, well, what's the other side going to say? Believe it or not, students are pretty resistant. That's their cell phone, and they're pretty dependent on it. They've developed a dependency. Remember, we talked about that at the beginning. So you have an article in your packet or in whatever and it's from China, and it is incredibly fascinating. What it talks about is how students developed post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, we associate PTSD with, soldiers going to war. Well, weren't we at war with a virus? Which is almost worse because it's an unseen enemy. Of course, students are suffering from PTSD. So it's really fascinating because I remember so clearly having students just shut down and not be able to work or do their homework. And this study out of China, of all places, ironically, What they found was PTSD, this trauma from the pandemic, triggered a sense of academic boredom in adolescence. If you struggled to do your homework a couple years ago, that should explain to you you're normal. You were facing a trauma and you just struggled. But what's important that happened was, well, you relied on your cell phone to kind of comfort you. It became a device where you could escape. And that created a cell phone dependency. Okay, well, we know what the cell phone dependency does. It impacts learning. Let's throw in social media sites like TikTok, which, by the way, is so under fire right now because of how the speed, how quick the videos are. They have done MRI scans on brain scans on people that are kind of addicted to TikTok and found that it literally damaged their brain. Sorry, my hair's like sticking up. So we're going to go to the outline here, and I'm going to tell you fascinating topic. So just your lead today, if you're doing leads, introduce the issues. What's the problem? Well, schools are implementing cell phone bans during part or the entire day for several reasons. First of all, obviously academic learning losses. If you think you've recovered, think again. Remember, it's not just academics that you learn in school. It is social skills. And I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me. We're behind the curve on that one. Use of cell phones during instructional time. Okay, so if we already have learning losses, and then you have, I don't know, a vibration, the ping of a text, the actual ringing of a phone, somebody forgot to turn their ringer off, or what if someone's on social media giggling and laughing. I've heard stories this month about girls going into the bathroom to create a TikTok video and then post it, because the bathroom's the safe place. Obviously, any kind of distraction in the classroom is going to impede learning. It's going to stop the instructor who has to, enforce a disciplinary action, ask the student to put it away. And then you've lost the flow of the instructional time. Then let's talk about socialization. If your head's buried in your phone, you are not socializing. You are not engaging in face-to-face interactions in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that Coppell specifically had to ban cell phones during school or during lunch because kids weren't eating baffles me to no end. Doesn't sound like cell phones are good during the day. So what's your job? What's your job as a kid? School, that's your job. So anything that keeps you from doing your job should be removed. That's their argument. So body one, many public and private school leaders assert students' use of cell phones throughout the school day causes a serious distraction in the educational process. So obviously you want to mention the types of distractions that are going on. You catch me when I've already taught the class. So I did this at the very beginning. Now that I've taught the class, I don't know, 30 times, I can tell you I'd probably do this differently because I know it almost, I have it almost memorized. I started with this Liz Karen Colby, Clinical Associate Professor of Education, who really addresses the parents. Why? Why did I do that? Because that's the opponent's argument. Your parents want you to have your cell phone in case of an emergency. Okay. She's saying, I think there's more of an empathy and understanding toward their child being able to put away their device so they can focus on learning in the classroom and wanting a face-to-face experience. She's emphasizing, look, I know you want to contact your child in the event of an emergency, especially in Texas with the Uvalde shooting, but do you want your child to learn? which is what their job is, because schools keep you safe. We have policies and procedures in place. There's absolutely no reason for your parent to text you during the day. Do they want you texting them while they're at work 7, 10, 20 times a day? Yes, I actually had a student tell me, a girl, her mom texted her 10 times a day. And I was just, my jaw dropped. And a boy. And I said, there's no reason for your parents to be contacting you 20 times a day. Who has the problem? That's not okay. So it eliminates that. Number 2, the National School Safety and Security Offices. What a great ethos here. Cell phones have been an increasingly negative disruption in schools. On a day-to-day basis, they are disruptive to the educational environment. Okay, so here's where you could put all the distractions in. Okay, they're actually dangerous. Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, there's a school shooting. And this is what I would advise you to do, as I advised all my students to do. Run to safety. Get in a closet, get in a classroom, lock the door, then get on your cell phone. You get on your cell phone and that shooter walks around the corner and you're on your phone. You just made yourself a target. And by the way, we have people that would already have called 911. And there's no reason to incite a panic. So you have to trust that the school has safety protocols in place, and they do. So that's body 1. Number 2, besides being a distraction from learning, it's been shown to be detrimental to a student's mental health, which is at a crisis point. So this is where the social skills come in. When we don't know how to behave, we create an environment that's more dangerous. Why are we having behavioral and discipline problems? Because mentally, you have had to deal with some extraordinary circumstances. Remember, I told you probably have PTSD, and you're still probably navigating that because it's endemic. The virus is still here. It didn't go away. It's just less of a threat. It still is a threat. So from the American Academy of Pediatrics, we know too much screen time has a negative effect. Okay, so if you're on your phone all the time, imagine what that effect is. Not to mention what you have access to in schools. Remember that the internet is unlimited access. Students have access to anything on the internet. A school district cannot block you when you're on your cell phone, unless they put some new firewall in place. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. So again, in the video, the psychologist, Dr. Steiner Adair, why are we giving kids stimulants during the day that disrupt all good aspects of learning? Okay, here's what that comment means. They have done studies that show when you're on your phone too much, it interferes with focus and attention. Well, that's ADD, ADHD. Your phone is causing you to have a neurological disorder that you wouldn't normally have. And I think we all know the dangers of the phone, but it's so hard to put it down because we've developed bad habits, remember? And that's what this study out of China, which is number 3, showed. A lot of this, and why now? Why are we banning cell phones now? And it does say that they were banning them before the pandemic started, but as a result of the pandemic, the problem is worse. So here's what we proved today. Those who support banning cell phones in schools argue the pandemic not only influenced education, causing gaps in learning and social development, but students developed unhealthy habits with their cell phones, impacting their social, emotional well-being. Removing the source of the problem can be a change in the right direction. All right, so this was an easy side to prove. So I know it probably upsets you to think that your cell phone will be banned, or if it has already. So the purpose of this was really, I think, education, and knowledge is power. I don't think the schools are doing anything to take anything away from you. What they're trying to do is create a safer educational learning environment for you. All right, that is the end of proponents of cell phones. Okay, I'm going to record back to back, so I'm going to switch gears here. So if you just did proponents, you are free to log off.
Guidelines that can provide.
There we go. So this next side will be opponents of schools banning cell phones. So if you, for any reason, are doing these back to back, I have a confession to make. I really disagreed with this side. I went into this thinking full ban, absolutely full ban. I'm for full ban. And I have to be honest with you, and this is what is great about being a teacher. I get to learn right along with you with some of these. And what I discovered was I agree with this side. And that's what we kind of learn in this class when we do two argumentative topics. We learn one side has, good points, and so does the other, and we kind of have to meet in the middle. So what I love about this side is, in this side, we're going to oppose full bans. Okay, so to be clear, opponents oppose a full ban. They oppose taking the device away the whole day. You walk into school, you can have it as you walk in, you got to put it up. You can't have it till the end of the day, but you can have it back at the end of the school day. Other than that, you have no access to it, right? Okay, so I can just tell you right now, the number one problem that's going to happen, and that is resistance. Kids, find a way. And I'm telling you, kids are ingenious about finding a way, especially when they really, really want their cell phone. So those of you who did banning books with me, we talked about that banning books argument. And that's what the opponent said. Look, you can ban the book, right? And you can say, we're not going to allow you to read it. That's going to make it more enticing. Or it did. That's what we learned in that essay. And kids wanted to get the book, and they did. They went around it, circumvented the rules, and went around it. I think that's basically what most of my students told me this month. So a couple things. You like your phone. Your parents want you to have a phone. So I'm about to show you another video, and you can listen to the parents say, I want my kid to have their phone. I want to be able to have access to them. Okay. Remember that school's your job. Why do your parents need to interrupt you at your job? Okay. Have you ever had a real emergency? Okay, so fire drill, safety protocols in place. Lockdown, safety protocols in place. My son actually had not a shooter at his school. He had a shooter outside of his school. So my son went to Dallas Academy in Dallas. If you don't know where that is, it's on Garland Road and Buckner. And White Rock Lake is right next to his school. So I get a call like 2:30, and the school has said, we are in lockdown. Now, this is my son was in high school. He was a senior, actually. He said, the Dallas Police Department has told us to lock down the school. We have taken every kid's car keys away, every kid's cell phone away. That was the instruction from the Dallas Police Department. There was a convicted felon who was in the area in White Rock Lake, and he had a weapon. I'm not sure if it was a gun. I don't remember. I remember being, oh my God, like a parent would. And they removed it for me. There's no way I could connect with my phone. So I had to trust in the process. And believe me, I paid private school tuition. I trusted in the process. We got a call about 5:30. Okay. My son called me. He said, hey, they released us. I'm on my way home. I have my keys. I have my phone. It's all good. Everything's good. But before that, the school had, emailed all the parents. So the school has every one of your parents' email. I'm assuming your parent has a cell phone. They will contact you. So I actually had a real life emergency. Another one, a student said, well, we had a death in the family, over the pandemic. My grandfather died. Her mom was in a car accident. I actually had both. And I said, no, please don't tell me that they called you in class. She said, yes. I said, okay, you don't tell a child someone has died or their mom's been in a terrible car accident. You do not do that to a child. You have a protocol in place. You call the office, they get the counselor comes to take the child out of the class to let them know in a way where they could have a complete breakdown and their peers wouldn't see them. So remove them, and tell them in a setting that's more therapeutic. So, I know your parents think that when they drop you off at school, that's when they have to trust the process. And I think they're going to be resistant. I think they're going to enable their kids, actually. So here's what my private school kids tell me and my charter school kids tell me who've had a full ban. Most of the kids in high school have a dummy phone. What's a dummy phone? It's a second phone. So yeah, they turn in a phone. They have a second one and they're very sneaky. They know when they can get away with it and when they don't. They don't make it obvious. They have to have their phone on them. So I just find that fascinating. Okay, I'm going to share. This is a great video. So I'll share this one with you. Okay. Where is my share? Where's my share? Share screen. There it is. Okay, so if you were watching this screen, Dallas made the news. We made the national news.
From using cell phones, students will be required to lock up their cell phones. That will start enforcing a cell phone free environment. A recent survey of 1,300 kids found in 2021, 37% of 11-year-olds had a smartphone. By age 14, 91% have a smartphone. But at the Richardson Independent School District, just outside Dallas, school leaders say they're seeing a problem with so many phones on campus. Distracted students. So at Forest Meadow Junior High, they're trying something new. It's called the Yonder Pouch. So here's how it works. Each student gets one of these pouches. At the beginning of the school day, they have to put their phone inside and lock the pouch. No access at all until lunchtime or dismissal when a teacher uses one of these to unlock the phone. Voila! Student gets their phone back.
Let's focus on learning.
Superintendent Tabitha Branham says research shows adults and teens feel the urge to check their cell phones every 4 minutes. Why can't we just trust kids to keep their phones off or in their backpacks and not be distracted by them during class time?
I do believe that our kids can be trusted and our kids are amazing humans. However, we know even as adults the temptation that the cell phone can have. We're trying to develop those lifelong habits.
Dallas isn't alone. To keep students focused on learning, some schools require them to put their phones in a cubby or special area when they enter the classroom. In New York City, the largest school district in the country, each school sets its own policy. In Los Angeles, students are required to turn their phones off and put them in a backpack or locker during the school day. And it may help with student learning. In a poll of 900 schools, Yonder found that when students don't have access to their phones, 65% of schools saw an improvement in academic performance. 74% showed better student behavior, and 83% saw an uptick in student engagement. Superintendent Branham says it's early, but she's already seeing some positive changes.
I'm hearing stories from students where even at lunch where they could use their cell phones, that they're still keeping them put away and that they're just having conversations, that they are listening to one another.
But some parents are unhappy with the program, citing safety as their biggest concern.
It's beneficial in making the kids, I guess, pay attention more in class. But the thing I don't like about it, like if something horrible happens in school, they won't be able to get to the phone quickly or call us.
I would prefer them to have some access to some type of phone immediately if they needed to in their possession.
While phones can help emergency responders, some experts say phones in class can also alert an intruder to the location of a student.
or potentially jam up cell phone towers or
Ah.
broadcast sensitive information on social media. Are you concerned at all that teachers might not be able to get to the students in case of an emergency to allow them to use their phones?
We are not concerned. The first and foremost thing we would want a teacher to do in the time of the crisis is execute our safety plan.
Well, Yonder tells NBC News that these pouches, they can actually be found in more than 1,000 schools right now in cities like San Francisco, Milwaukee, Nashville, and Boston. They're not cheap. The cost is about $20 per student. For Superintendent Branham, her district is 20,000 kids. That's $400,000. We do want to thank our NBC Dallas.
NBC Dallas. Okay, so I have a counter argument already. $400,000 for Yonder pouches to lock up cell phones. So you know where I'm going. You know where opponents are going to say that's $400,000 that is unnecessary, that could be used for other programs, for a host of other things, academics, football. So that's pretty extreme, right? And this was from August. So this was the school year when it started in 2022. So as we go through the opponents, you'll see banning phones in class, not so fast. So Erica Berry wrote this article, and here's what she says. Given what we know about how phones and social media harbor and radicalize violence, harm mental health, and capsize attention spans, leeching our attention even when they're turned off. It sounds like she's arguing for the other side, doesn't it? The case for eliminating devices to create safe learning spaces seems like a no-brainer. Okay. So notice how she was smart to address the other side. She says, it's time, though, to shift our collective gaze of accountability, not with a one-size-fits-all ban, but with a renewed investment in digital literacy, ethics, well-being. Okay. So this is where they got me. You know, we have a thing called professional development. Teachers have continuing education. We're constantly learning. We constantly have to take classes to improve our game. It's just part of the school district curriculum. So I say put that $400,000 into teaching teachers how to navigate the current changes, the circumstances as a result of the pandemic. So as you see in here as well, there are so many great ethos examples. The next page is a former high school teacher, biology teacher, PhD candidate studying the proliferation of K through 12 educational technology, Tess Bernhard. And she says, I don't know, a full ban is a blunt tool. A huge irony given how much access we gave students during the pandemic while they were at home. She also agrees we need to find a way to teach and train students about their phone. So as I'm reading this, I'm slowly being convinced. I'm going to go to the next page here. This says Mary Beth Hertz, author of Digital and Media Literacy in the Age of the Internet, Practical Classroom Applications. She incorporated a screen time tracking project into her freshman Intro to Technology class. And here's what she did. She trained her students with digital literacy on pedagogical models of meta-mindfulness. And they were normalized in the curriculum. What does that mean? Okay, well, just like your cell phone has ways for you to track how much time you're spending on Instagram or TikTok, or how much time you're watching YouTube videos. Most people don't track that. So when she had students tracking how much time, how many hours they were actually on their cell phones, they were astounded. Like, I had no idea I was doing this much. So let me give you an analogy. When you go on a diet, I don't know if you know this, you can track on a cell phone app every single thing you put in your mouth, and it will give you the calories. And when most people go on a diet, they look at, you input everything you put in, and you are astounded. Oh my gosh, you're supposed to have 1,800 calories a day. I had 3,000. Well, no wonder you're gaining weight. So we don't really connect with how much we're doing it. So make students aware. Have a tracking device that tracks how many hours they're doing it. So this is digital literacy training. So, okay, that got me. I'm gonna go to the next one. Ban the cell phone ban. Here we go. Doug Lima, author of Teach Like a Champion. He wrote in Education Next. Okay, we don't have to ban cell phones. We have to set rules, and they can take different forms. You don't need the Yonder pouches. You can set up, baskets hanging on the door. But here's what he says. Again, this is about training students to learn what their device is doing to them. So this is where it got me, because I'm on the other side. I have students who went to college, and let me tell you, as a mom, when you drop them off at college, mom and dad, they don't listen to you anymore. They don't listen to their instructors anymore. They feel like they're adults and they can handle things on their own. Okay, but if all we do is ban cell phones and you don't learn those tools and you don't understand what that phone is doing to you, then we have done you a disservice. We haven't taught you or given you the skills. So here's the deal. Schools are constantly changing. Our culture is constantly changing, and the educational process has to change with it. Yes, the cell phone is damaging kids, especially now, academically, socially, mental health. Okay, so instead of just taking it away and saying, sorry, you can't handle it, it's like saying, you can't get a driver's license until you're 18. Sorry. No, let's teach you. Let's put you in driver's ed. Let's put you in technology ed. And let's train you to know. Let's give you the tools to navigate that device. So when you go off to college, you're going to understand when to put that phone down. And mom and dad don't have to police you. And your teachers don't have to be hovering over you, disciplining you. You already have the tools. And that's what convinced me. And I was really surprised. And those of you who know me probably know I was full ban last week or the first week. I have to be honest with you, I'm totally here. I think a full ban is necessary just to break habits, but I do think partial bans and I do think training students is absolutely necessary. So here we go. Here's your outline. Let's go to the lead. After 2 years of hybrid learning, students attending school in person and online, the roles of cell phones have changed. We have to change with them. During the pandemic, the cell phone was the only way lower income students could access online classes. They often couldn't afford internet. They didn't have school issued iPads, but a problem happened. Not just in lower income schools, affluent school districts. Students developed a dependency on technology, specifically their smartphone, not their iPad, because that has restrictions. So allowing students to carry personal cell phones has become a source of contention. You walk in any high school hallway, and this is where it's the worst, or cafeteria or classroom, you will see students texting, their heads buried in their phone, gaming, posting on Instagram, Snapchat, watching or creating TikTok videos, watching YouTube videos. If you're seeing that, you are not having socialization. So that's a strike for for socialization, which is a part of the educational process. We also know that cell phones cause distractions. Strike 2, right? Because we have learning losses. But what are the opponents? What could the opponents possibly argue? Okay, well, they have really pretty good arguments if they convinced me. Students need to learn how to set their own limits. It's preferable to banning them altogether. Yes, students and parents will resist them. Bans will only be a short-term fix and partial solution to the educational problems students face today. Here's our reality. Our world has changed. The pandemic changed it. The pandemic changed the way we teach. I completely changed the way I teach. Our other problem here is if we go on this way, you're going to lose a lot more teachers. We've already lost 40% of teachers, and we're losing them hand over fist because of discipline problems. I have so many friends who are teachers who are done with discipline problems. I don't want to teach anymore. So let's fix this. So one argument explains a total ban is extreme and unnecessary when partial bans can be put in place, which will teach students important limits and how they can become better at restricting their own screen time with cell phones. So I already did number one. This was Doug Lemoff, Teach Like a Champion. He believes to ban all cell phones would possibly be an overcorrection when this is a teachable moment for educators to instill lessons on how students can learn to be more responsible. So I'm going to be candid with you. I had some great conversations. So if you didn't get to come in person, and forgive me. See, I didn't even have to worry about that because no one was in here. If you missed in-person classes, you really missed some great conversations because we talked about, really what was going on in the classroom, and kids, were really upset about it, didn't feel safe. They thought kids were really rude. And I said, yeah, what if we find a way to make kids more responsible? What if we put, accountability in your hands? Like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. That cell phone has a lot of power, but I do think you can learn to use it responsibly. Again, I've given you 4 in Body 1, so you can choose any 3. Erica Berry was the author of the first article, basically suggesting implementing solutions to teach students digital literacy, giving them the technology tools to navigate their cell phone. Tess Bernhard, I gave you that one already. This is the PhD candidate for the studying the proliferation of K through 12 educational technology, also agrees in training students. Mary Beth Hertz already did it. She's the one who is the, she incorporated a screen time tracking project in her technology class. Now, I don't teach technology, so that's what convinced me as well. So First Body, all in all, those who oppose a full ban suggest there's an opportunity here to mold and shape students with new digital literacy skills, which will allow them to better self-monitor their behaviors with smartphones. So I was really surprised at myself because I'm on board with this. I am, and I'm kind of shocked. Body 2, not as strong as an argument, but I do agree with it. An all-out ban is going to be met with resistance, and not just by students, but by parents. Here's the other thing. This is fascinating. I'll get there. They don't stop bullying. Well, they stop cyberbullying, but they don't stop bullying. They are not worth the additional expense to enforce them. So please cross out, they do not improve academic performance, because that is not accurate. They do. Cell phone bans have been shown to improve academic performance by 65%. They improve behavior by 74%. And there's an 83% uptick in student participation. Okay, so we know bans work. Okay, but that's not what we want to argue. We want to argue, okay, what's not going to work about a full ban? So first off, parents and students will resist when educators demand they give up their cell phones. You tell a student, I can't do something, and they're going to figure out a way to do it. Similarly, a parent here is part of the problem. And maybe this is pandemic related too. They want to be able to contact their child in an emergency. Maybe it's because of the behavioral issues, the disciplinary problems, the rise in shootings, the rise in these things happening. What's really fascinating about, the cell phones, and I kind of mentioned that last week, there's this term called swatting. And what kids are doing with their cell phones when they don't want to take a test or they want to get out of school, they call in a prank or a threat saying so-and-so has a gun in their locker. And the schools take that pretty seriously. Well, if you don't have your cell phone at school, you can't call in a prank, right? Right. So that was kind of the full ban argument. I think though, those are extreme examples. I don't think the average student is going to think that way when you give them the power and the tools to navigate that device. I think that's what you're going to do when you have a full band and you are resistant. You're like, oh, I'm going to show them, right? So that's the argument for that. I think students are notoriously brilliant about finding ways around rules. You know, my daughter, this was, I mean, she's 24. This was elementary school. Her private school banned hoodies because kids hid things in their hoodies and the pocket. They couldn't wear hoodies. They could wear a sweatshirt that was a crew sweatshirt, no hoodies. Just a sidebar, hoodies are where people hide drugs too. So hoodies are out in a lot of places. A lot of private schools do not allow hoodies for that reason. But again, the argument here is students will bring a second dummy phone while they use the other phone. And by the way, a lot of my affluent kids said, well, we have two phones. I'm like, wait, your parents bought you two phones? See, this is the parent conspiring with their child to find a way around the restricted bans because the parent wants them to have a phone. So the parent is part of the problem. Okay. Number two, and please don't use the sweetest research conducted in 2020 that looked at academic performance. I really found when I wrote this, I thought it was a good argument at the time, but you know, after teaching it a month, okay. The part I do like in number two is the interesting fact about cyberbullying. When they took phones away, they banned cell phones. Cyberbullying stopped at school. But guess what? Bullying increased. And I was kind of astounded by that. And, you know, one of the kids in the class, well, Mrs. Hensel, a bully's a bully. If they can't bully online, they'll bully you face to face. I go, that's exactly what they're saying. The bully doesn't stop. They just find a different way. So again, that argument, kids find a way around it. And then finally, the Yonder pouch. $400,000 to put it in a pouch to lock it up seems pretty extreme. And that's taxpayer money that could go into these digital literacy training for students. So locking away or removing cell phones is at best a short-term solution. Complex issues will inevitably rise when students and parents resist bans, which eliminate only part of the problems in schools. So those who oppose a full ban on cell phones believe removing them will only make them more irresistible to students and their parents, who will find clever ways to circumvent rules, whereas teaching students new technological digital skills instead, not paying hundreds of thousands of dollars on a device to lock it up, will help them develop life skills they can use later on. This concludes the opponent's argument for cell phone bans. Thank you so much for attending. Please come in person when you can. This in no way should replace in person. So if you are one of those students who is going to habitually come online to a Zoom class, then maybe you need to consider that this is not conducive to your schedule and you need to let this class go. There are a lot of people waiting to be in this class. I'm going to move up a lot of 8th graders in May. And you know what? You hang with me as long as you can because you get busy and I understand and I support you no matter what, but please come to class when you can. Thank you. Have a great day.